Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I'm your host, Chris, joined by Pumpkin. Baby is over there. And as every week, we have a special guest. So this week's guest is Garrett Davis. Garrett, how you doing?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So I've known you for quite a while, over a decade here and there.
Has it been that long?
It has been that long. I started Multivarious in 2012. So,
oof.
Yeah, time makes fools of us all.
2012 doesn't feel like that far away, though. You know, like in your brain.
Oh yeah, I still feel like 20 years ago is the 90s. So.
Yep, classic cars from the 90s now. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Do you want to give a little quick intro about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Garrett Davis. I'm the new accelerator director here at Shawnee State University. My background's in computer science engineering. I've launched a few startups, primarily RX Games, which is a gaming technology platform that delivers stroke therapy and molecular therapy. Been in the games industry, the technology industry for around 15 years or so. Helped run technology accelerators, incubators, and happy to be on the show with you.
Yeah, and you're also from the beautiful Portsmouth, Ohio area.
I am. I'm from Oak Hill, Ohio, so about 30 miles from Portsmouth, Ohio. So Southeast Ohio boy. Born and raised down in the south parts here of the state here.
Nice. Now, we don't have a lot to sort of throw out there today, but we are working with Shawnee State. You are the fearless leader. You brought me on to help you out to create a gaming accelerator for not only the area but for I guess we would say indie studios. We can use it, throw that term around.
Yep. What is an indie studio?
Yeah, I don't know if you are prepared or want to talk anything about that at the moment. I know we're still kind of behind the scenes getting stuff organized, so I don't know how much you want to throw out there, but
I think it's fine to tease it. This is pretty much our audience we're looking for. So we are putting together an accelerator program here in Southeast Ohio, and we want to just be able to support indie developers and games in general. We think they've gotten too big, too volatile, too expensive, and we want to kind of pioneer sustainable indie game development. And we're hoping to do that here with this awesome partner of a university, Shawnee State, with their top 10 gaming program, and we're going to have a great program coming soon. Hashtag soon. So follow us on. What's that?
I was gonna say we're moving fast, but also time is moving quickly. So a lot of pieces to put together, but it's coming along.
It's coming along. Super exciting. I think the vision that we have with the team we've built in the school is going to be something that really I think the industry needs right now. To be honest with you, with the massive amount of layoffs we've had. Even though games are making more money than ever, it's tough to square that circle. And so, I think the industry really needs what we're doing right now. And, it's going to be a big benefit, not to just, Southeast Ohio, but, games in general.
Yeah. A couple of things, the squaring the circle I want to come back to in a second here. But as far as Shawnee, I want to give Shawnee a little bit of props because they have spent over the past decade tremendous amount of effort and resources in building their game design program. And I think it's one of the better ones in the country. I think the stats prove that
Princeton Review agrees with you.
Yeah. So I think that's really good. I mean, they've brought me on. I've been coming down to Shawnee for probably close to a decade again. Brought me down as a guest speaker. I've helped judge the pitch competitions. So I try to come down to the Shawnee State Games Conference every year when I can. They brought me on as a adjunct professor for a year when one of the professors was transitioning. So I went and I covered a couple semesters of coursework for there, and that was a great experience. And then, you came in and contacted me about helping with the accelerator, which I'm excited to do. I think this is a natural sort of extension of everything I've been wanting to do with building the games industry here in Ohio and the Midwest. We had our Sandbox incubator before COVID hit, and then we closed that down. I've mentioned before, I'm kind of kicking myself for not transitioning that into a digital incubator,
Yeah.
But at the time, we were in the middle of COVID and we had all this other stuff going on. We were just trying to survive as a company. And so it was something where I was like, well, I don't know if I want to start up a whole new kind of thing. But that being said, we have been the Sandbox.Space. We've been bringing that back up. We've got our weekly show, we've got our email list, and we're starting to bring back the sort of digital components of an incubator. So all of these things I think are fitting together really nicely, and it's pretty cool to see happening in Ohio, and the fact that Shawnee's putting real effort and money into it. And it was started off the backs of a grant, which I think just shows how important even little bits of money, a couple $100,000 here or there that a state or federal program can provide, a small program is instrumental in getting it off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Elite project, that our great senator put together for us, really kickstarted this whole thing. It wouldn't have been possible without him. Props to Sherrod Brown,
who's running for re-election.
Who's running for re-election? Everyone,
so just little little plug there.
Yep, little shameless plug there. And this is, when COVID hit. And it kind of forced everyone to rethink corporate and office work, how we build products, how we build games. There's 1 billion square feet of office space in the United States. It's vacant currently. Everybody's currently working from home. And these kind of massive metropolitan areas with their, cost of living, we're starting to see a big migration of folks kind of leaving, San Francisco, Boston, New York, and ending up, in our great state of Ohio. Ohio is going to be the new Silicon Midwest. Got it on T-shirt. And so we're looking to capture these folks as they're, leaving these metropolitan areas. It just doesn't make sense, to make games particularly anymore. And we're hoping to give them an awesome place to do that in, Shawnee and in Portsmouth. Yeah.
For those who don't know, I live in lovely Columbus, Ohio, here in the center. What's wild? This is like a total thing. Every weather map, every big map, it always shows Cincy and Cleveland, never shows Columbus, right?
Yeah.
I was looking at a map the other day. I don't remember what it was for. And it had these various dots. And Cincy and Cleveland's dots were larger than Columbus. I was like, what do those dots even represent? Columbus is way bigger than Cleveland. Way bigger.
Okay.
And so anyway, that's just a side thing. But one of the things that kind of drives me crazy about Columbus is we have this like insatiable, incessant need to make downtown a thing. It's like for 40 years we've been trying to be like a little New York. And there's some cool stuff downtown, don't get me wrong, but Columbus is not a downtown city. All of our cool shit is in these little pockets. Used to be Franklinton or Short North or Clintonville.
Bridge Park.
Yeah, whatever. Bridge Park in Dublin's a new one. So I've always kind of, and I understand, putting on my cynical man's hat, that a lot of this has to do with developers, right? They built these big buildings. They want people in them. They want to make money. I get that. But I think when you already have a vibe and you already have sort of a city that people will bounce around to different parts in, why not just build off of that strength, And I think remote work is kind of... Pumpkin, you are killing me here. Remote work has definitely, I think, moved in that direction where, if I don't have to be downtown, I don't want to be downtown. Even when we had our office at the Sandbox Incubator, I always had our people start our day at 10. Not because I wanted to sleep in. I was always up at 6, but because I didn't want to go drive through traffic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our day would start at 6. We'd do 10 to 6. And I'd take me 7 minutes to cruise on in down the highway, If we win at 9, it would take me like 20 to 30 minutes or more.
How do you think Intel, whenever it opens up its plant in Columbus? I mean, they're talking, 3 million people moving there in the next 6 years or so. Number one real estate market in the country.
I don't buy that.
Cincinnati's too. You think it's going to be a Carmageddon in Columbus by the end of it?
The one thing I know, and then we'll get down to real business here, is that Columbus does not currently have the public transit infrastructure to handle 3 million people.
Yep.
So you take that for what it's worth.
I can agree. I think your cat agrees with us as well.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. She's very needy.
You pulled one away in the tornadoes last night, did you?
Oh man, no, those tornado warnings were. I kept playing Fallout 4. I didn't do anything, but I heard them. And then Baby got scared. Baby doesn't like storms, so she was next to me shaking for a couple hours, but we took care of it.
You think the guys at Fallout were prepared for the massive amount of sales that show was going to generate for them?
So, why don't we take on the first topic here, and you tell me, okay? You ready?
Ready.
All right. So this is from gamesindustry.biz from Brendan Sinclair. Xbox shutting down 4 Bethesda studios. Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roadhouse are on the chopping block. The 4 studios include, I just mentioned those, but the ones that did Redfall, Hi-Fi Rush, Ghostwire Tokyo, and The Evil Within. So you tell me, Garrett.
Wow.
Does this seem like a company that is making use of their windfall from the TV show?
Wow. When last I checked, Fallout 4 was trending on top 10 on Steam, I believe, and so was New Vegas.
So I just started Fallout 4. I played it at launch. I was a huge Fallout fan with 1 and 2 and Brotherhood of Steel.
Same.
3,
yep.
I wasn't so hot on, and then 4, I guess I kind of viewed 4 as like their chance to like win me back, and it didn't really do it.
Yeah.
But I restarted recently, a couple of days ago, on their survival mode, and I have been really enjoying it. It's brutal, but I've been really enjoying the slow kind of exploration around, like, if I'm not worrying about the story and stuff, because I think that's where the Fallout 4 really kind of falls down. If I'm just exploring and checking things out, I'm having a lot of fun with it. But
yeah, you're too busy worried about your settlements to go out and save your son. I kept forgetting that he's captured somewhere.
Yeah, you can't fast travel in survival. So like every direction or decision you make, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to be doing this for the next hour, so I might as well got to make sure I'm ready.
Hot take, but I almost think fast travel kind of ruins some parts of the game, and I understand like why it's there. But I just remember like in Morrowind, one of those older school games, like whenever I went to Oblivion, in Morrowind, you used to have to like read a note that said, hey, turn left at this tree, like 2 miles down the road, like after you pass a squirrel, then the cave's going to be on your right. And you really like you discovered things kind of organically at that point. And by the end, again, when I got to Oblivion and later on, I was just fast traveling like all over the place, everywhere I went.
Yeah,
there were things everyone went to.
Yeah, those quests become like a checkbox thing. In Fallout 4 Survival, it's like going towards a quest is like a big deal. You're like, okay, I have a quest over here, but I'm here. Do I have enough shit to make it down there and survive? Do I have enough? Because you have to drink water and eat food and everything, or you get sick. And I've been enjoying it a lot. I've been just little bits by bits, which might be just what Fallout. If you could take that, it drives people crazy. Like I realize that most new gamers are not. They don't want to spend 2 hours walking down, to the next quest. But like that's kind of what these open world games were supposed to be, sort of,
Yep.
But anyway, so
and so they're making a massive amount of money off of a backlog they have of
I bought the season pass for $35 or whatever it was, so they got my money.
And they decided to close 4 studios. Did they give any reason about why they were closing those studios?
So in an email, Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty reportedly said the company is closing the developers in order to focus resources on high-impact titles. and the rest of Bethesda's portfolio games to double down on these franchises. Again, we're back to fucking franchises, and invest to build new ones requires us to look across the business to identify the opportunities that are best positioned for success. This reprioritization of titles and resources means a few teams will be realigned to others and that some of our colleagues will be leaving us. So there's something, I've talked about this in previous shows because unfortunately, like, we're on episode 22 of the Sandbox.Space Weekly. Remember, go to the Sandbox.Space and you can sign up for our email list. But we have probably 85 or 90% of our episodes have involved the layoffs in some regard. Like, it's just every week, it's just like a new thing. But there's a really interesting article. I should see if I find it. And don't quote me on this because I can't remember the number, but I think it's roughly 50%. They looked at inflation and the rise of inflation and the rising costs of inflation. And they found that roughly 50% of inflation is just bullshit cost raising that companies are doing because they can.
Yep.
And yeah, like, and it's ridiculous. And I think this sort of falls in line. Again, I don't know anything about Xbox's internals. I'm not sitting there with, Phil Spencer in these meetings or whatever, but it's just like, you spent $69 billion on Activision Blizzard, and then you went and laid off 1,800 people, and then you bought Bethesda. I forget what that was. That was like 10 billion, I think, ish. I want to say.
Yep.
And now it's just like, what is going on? Like, you're spending this insane amount of money, but then I'm not surprised. This is what Xbox does every fucking time. Like, they completely destroyed Rare when they bought Rare. Like, Xbox just cannot seem to get out of its own way. And I don't know if it's a part of the company culture or the leadership or their prioritizations. Like, I'm not really sure, but it just seems like they keep doing this. The one star is that because of this, and because Xbox isn't selling well, that I might get Outer Worlds 2 on PlayStation. So maybe I'll get that.
The silver lining.
Yeah.
I think once you become publicly traded and once you become, this kind of huge, juggernaut, your product really isn't games anymore. Your customers really aren't gamers. Your product is your stock price, and your customers are, your shareholders. And so, they need to make moves that's, going to protect their share price and their stockholders. And, and that's just capitalism in the name of the game sometimes. But I honestly think it's almost making the games worse.
Totally. Absolutely.
There's a saying like, but banks are too big to fail. Sometimes I think these gaming studios are getting too big to succeed. These games are being made by committee. When you're spending $300, $400, $500 million on, making a game, to get, your investors their money back, you need to make some decisions that, in my opinion, actively make the game worse sometimes. It's got to be monetized. Sure. They look at their player base as, kind of walking bank accounts. And, building giant, huge studios in really high cost of living areas is, part of that. So I wish somebody would put a program together.
Yeah, if there was only solutions to these problems.
Solve some of these problems, Chris.
So I have a question for you, because this is mentioned a lot. The cost of game development is just getting so high, and I think that is true for sure. But that tends to be true in like a select realm of AAA development, because we've seen over the years, and you and I have talked about plenty of examples where smaller to mid-sized teams can excel. But yep. How much of this is on, and I hesitate to use the word fault, but I'll just use it because you know what but how much of the fault lies in gamers, like our expectations of what games should be and whatnot. Like I saw a really interesting, it was a page out of like it was like a Toys R Us, it was like from the 90s, like the inserts you'd get from newspapers, and I don't think it was Toys R Us, but it was something like that. And it was like Killer Instinct was like $79, and another game was like $83, and it's just like, and that's in 1990s money, right? And so people are sitting around complaining about $70 for a game when you get a game, and I'll say like Fallout, despite its issues, or maybe, and trust me, Fallout's got a lot of freaking issues. We can talk about Bethesda all day, but they're playing it. I mean, The Witcher, Cyberpunk, like, I mean, those games I have probably put, I don't know. I mean, even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I've put almost 200 hours in. Cyberpunk, I've probably put 250 hours in. I've beaten that game several times. So for $70, I feel like I'm getting, and a friend bought Cyberpunk for me for my birthday, so I didn't pay nothing. But I feel like I'm getting a pretty good value for $70, right? You go to a movie.
Absolutely.
You buy a movie and some popcorn and a drink, and you're at $18 to $20 for a 2 to 3 hour experience.
Yep.
So my question to you is, where gamers, like our expectations and stuff, where do we fall in that?
Yeah, I mean, there is some personal responsibility about where you kind of put your dollars. You know, what you want to support. You know, I've fallen into the trap of being kind of a live service, you know, Andy, sometimes myself, you know, playing constantly Apex Legends, or, you know, you go back to, you know, League of Legends, or, you know, you get back on that kind of toxic train for, you know, a week or two, because, you know, you just can't, you know, start something new. I've been trying to break myself of that, you know, kind of awful habit.
Yeah.
And I do think, you know, there's some gamers really need to be able to vote with their dollars, you know, be willing to, you know, try these new kind of indie games coming out, and play new games, and, you know, maybe get away from spending, you know, 2,000 hours on Counter-Strike to kind of monopolize all your time. But it's tough to break through that. You know, 14,000 games were released on Steam last year. It's just really tough, I think, for a lot of these smaller studios to break through that kind of veil that the industry has around it of people's attention. You know, there's so many things that are grabbing folks' attention now. I mean, all the different apps, you know, TikTok, Instagram, you know, they all want more and more of your time to be able to monetize that. And games have got to fit inside of, you know, the rest of the world kind of happening around it. So, you know,
I hear you. I feel like games, though, are a little bit different, because games are almost like a gym membership, kind of, where it's like you want them to pay the monthly price, but then you don't want them to actually use any services, you know? Obviously, you want people in there, otherwise the game seems dead, like, obviously.
Right.
But it's like, ideally, if you didn't have to pay for any service space or whatever, then, like, that'd be great.
Yeah, big sales up front, and, you know, the longer you've got to run those services, the more it kind of eats into your profit.
Yeah. I've thought about this with Call of Duty, which I'm not the biggest Call of Duty fan, and I don't... I probably play one every 4 years or something. Like, whenever one comes around that people are like, oh, it seems like there's always a good one, and then it crashes for like 3 years, and then a good one pops up. So I always just wait till whatever the good one is. And I don't really play the multiplayer very much. I just kind of play the single player. So I am not your typical Call of Duty purchaser, for sure. But one of the things that I think Call of Duty has done they've been sort of a spearhead for graphical fidelity, and just like their games always look great. I think their art direction tends to be really good within the genre that it sits in. And so they end up creating these like really good, cool looking experiences that, I mean, most campaigns are like 5 hours long, you know, at 6 hours long. Yeah. They're not very long. But then that sort of sets the stage on what every other game needs to look like. And there's very few studios, like, unless you're a Naughty Dog or something, you're not going to be able to hit, you know, I'm enjoying Fallout 4, but the characters in that game look like fucking potato people. Like, it's not a great looking game. And the creation engine, a lot of Bethesda's games, I always feel like they look kind of like dirty, like crunchy. And so I don't generally think Bethesda is a good looking studio, but unfortunately graphics are kind of that's what sets the stage a lot, in our expectations.
And I mean, sometimes I feel like I can put up examples where, I'm usually, whenever I jump in one of these live service games, the first thing I do is turn all my, resolutions down to try and get, an edge on, graphics, or being able to kind of see in the dark if it's like competitive. But in my opinion, if the game's fun, graphics are important, but I don't know if that's the main kind of driver for, what makes a game successful anymore. I mean, it used to be back in the day, when everybody would pump a whole bunch of marketing dollars into a game to launch it. That was super important. But, even games like, Lethal Company, whenever it first came out, had a bunch of bugs, and maybe it doesn't have the highest fidelity of Call of Duty graphics, but man, is that game fun, right? Sure. It's streamable whenever folks are playing it. And, one guy, built that game over a course of, I think, a year and a half, Zeekers. Shout out to you.
It has a very Stardew Valley kind of feel in its story, its development story.
Absolutely. Another one I've been playing, Dark and Darker. Out of South Korea, they've had a whole lot of success. Iron Mason in that studio, and most of those graphics were bought off the Unreal Asset Store whenever they started doing their playtest. They still not switched a whole lot of them out. Yeah. Even after having 600,000 folks, I think, on playtest 4. So I think they're launching on Epic here soon. They've got their own launcher happening now. But what these smaller indie studios are able to accomplish now. I mean, I think games are the tools out there are better than they ever have been. The accessibility, something like Unity and Unreal and all these tools that we're using has sped up the development time for games, and that kind of graph of what a AAA studio and indie is able to get to when it comes to quality and the amount of time you're able to make it, I think is getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah. I also don't think Call of Duty photorealistic graphics, that's not the benchmark that people should be shooting for. And you kind of mentioned this. One of our people in chat mentioned that in the indie space with unique graphics, that's working well for them. But they say that fun wins over graphics. And I generally agree with that. I would also say that art direction and aesthetic choices in the indie space are a big deal. You can do a lot with a very clear, interesting art direction that doesn't require you to have 4K high def graphics or whatever. Totally. I want to jump into this because I think this is a good follow up on this. So about gamers and their responsibilities, you asked about this. Boom. Sony revokes widely despised Helldivers 2 PSN linking policy. So I didn't know anything about this until the S hit the fan. But I guess so. Sony was, trying to force everybody to log in, to create and log into a PSN account, even if this was through Steam and whatnot. Is that
yes? So I've been trying to follow this one, pretty closely from what I understand. Okay. And so from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong anywhere.
Here it says this. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. So, yeah, it looks like
Democracy won.
So, yeah, it looks like there was a review bombing campaign that...
Whenever they launched Helldivers 2, apparently this was always the plan to, basically force you to sign in through PlayStation Network, even when you bought the game on Steam. And there was some kind of bug at launch that didn't allow them to do that. So they always had that, posted and was kind of understood. Whenever they launched the game, a patch was coming that said, you can only, play this game if you have a PSN network account. The problem came whenever they did launch it on Steam, and that wasn't a feature. Folks that live in countries where PlayStation Network is not a thing, bought that game, and a lot of people did that. And then so 3 months down the road, whenever you launch this, and that's going to take away a game that these people love, that's where all the kind of review bombing started. And the CEO of Helldivers came out, and he's like, I don't know, I think what was a quote of his, whenever a player asked him on Twitter, like, what am I supposed to do, like my country doesn't have PlayStation Network, I can't get an account here, and I bought the game, like what am I supposed to do? And he's like, I have literally have no idea, like this is on Sony, this is a kind of deal we had worked out with them from the beginning. We're trying to get it figured out, and that led to a massive amount of just negative reviews on Helldivers 2. And it looks like Sony's listened and decided to not force them to do
That's
it.
That's good. It confuses me why it would be required. I know, like, again, I started playing Fallout 4, and they're like, sign in with your Bethesda account. I was like, I don't have a Bethesda account. And then it gave me the ability to do like a quick join using my PlayStation authentication. So that was easy because I just pushed a button. I'm never going to your Bethesda.com to log in. I'm never going to use any of your features. Like, the only reason I did it is because you told me to, and there was one single button I could push to do it. I don't personally want to sign up to all these. I actually have, I don't know if I've ever said this, my account that connects to all of my video game stuff, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, it's a secondary account that I only use for video game stuff, because I don't want my normal accounts to get bombarded with like Sony store bullshit or whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't need any of this stuff. So all of my video game stuff is like in its own little thing. My Blizzard account, I created, yeah. I won't say what it is, but yeah, I completely separate it from my thing, because I just noticed in the mid 2000s things were getting crazy, and every time I wanted to do something or play something, I was being asked to make something new.
Well, and that was the old kind of business model, right? You have platform specific games that came out, and Sony wanted to. Xbox wanted, and we, Nintendo, they wanted the console exclusives. They thought that would sell more kind of boxes for them. And so that deal with Helldivers 2, when you're a small studio and a big publisher is willing to cut you a check.
Oh, absolutely.
Your only stipulation in that deal is everything's got to be on PlayStation Network. I don't think they were prepared for the amount of success they were going to be able to have, and I honestly don't think it's anything malicious, kind of on their side or Sony's in general. That was the plan from launch. Had you always been required to have a PSN account from launch, I don't think this would have gotten the news it had. But I also don't think they would have had the kind of viral explosive success they had. And I think Sony and Xbox and Nintendo and these and everybody's starting to realize that putting a game and not allowing players on all these different PC, console to play together really hurts the game and hurts the industry in general. So I'm really happy to see Sony's walk back on that.
Totally. This feels like another attempt by Sony to I don't want to say mimic Games Pass, but to try to get more people on the PSN network, so it looks like it's competitive just numbers wise against Games Pass, even though they're different services.
Right.
Games Pass came about. I mean, there's a whole long thing, but Games Pass came about because Xbox was not selling consoles at the rate Sony was, and Microsoft needed to find a way to monetize their games and their services for people that were not buying Xboxes.
Right.
And so then they did that, which then forced, capitalism wins here, then forced Sony to make a better version of their PlayStation Plus subscription, which they did, which was great. So that was a place where competition really kind of worked out for the consumer. But yeah, I think Sony's trying to get more and more people. I mean, this is the Apple story, right? Like, it's about the ecosystem. You get
Absolutely.
people in the ecosystem. Yes, you have to make good products. Yes, you have to sell them and market them. But if you can create an ecosystem that just kind of works, and like I know there's a lot of Apple haters out there, but man, their ecosystem just works great. It just works great. I don't know what to tell you. My laptop, this is the best laptop I've ever owned by far. And the way it connects to everything works great. It's lovely. PlayStation.
How many games can you play on that laptop?
Well, that's
Chris?
the thing. I don't use my laptop. I use it for work, Garrett. I'm a business professional. Yeah, I don't use it. I don't use it for gaming. I actually have like a $3,000 dev machine down here. That's like, it was top end like a year ago. I haven't plugged it in a year. It's just sitting there. So somebody would probably kill me for this machine, but I agree. Like, you don't go to Apple for gaming, right? But productivity, all my video stuff. I mean, this laptop, I can run this laptop for like 20 hours without a charge. Like, it's nuts. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's jump to the next thing, just because we're running a little bit out of time, and you actually came on. There's just a lot of great stuff this week. Boom. I'm doing my booms today. Nintendo says it will announce its next gen successor within this fiscal year. So I was reading through this, and I guess Nintendo's fiscal year ends March 31st. So when I first read this, I was like, oh, okay, because most fiscal years are June, generally.
Right.
The end of June.
Right.
But apparently Nintendo's is March 31st. So I quickly lost, and I should say this is a Games Radar article by Josh West. President, blah, blah, blah. It will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of the Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. Nintendo's fiscal year is set to conclude on March 31st, 2025. So there's plenty of time to get caught up on the best Switch games. Yeah. So at first when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, we'll see some information on the next Switch by June. And then I realized their fiscal year is March 31st. So that became far less exciting, I guess. But given that, it's been a while. People have been talking about a Switch 2. What do you think? I mean, do you think the Switch 2 is going to sort of just more or less follow the form factor and function of the Switch 1 and just be a more powerful device in that regard? Like, think we'll see anything new on it? Do you own a Switch? Do you play Switch?
I do own a Switch. That's that one. Zelda's obviously my favorite game on there. Played actually the Harry Potter series when it came out on Switch, which was like a technical marvel. I feel like whenever it actually came out, I was going to get it on a PC, but my girlfriend loves Harry Potter, so she's got the Switch. She doesn't want to play on PC, so I was like, well, we'll try this when it comes out.
And about the Hogwarts game.
Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy.
That game's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it played on Switch like surprisingly well. I was expecting it to like catch on fire at some point in time, and possibly like explode, just because that game's like so massive and the graphics and the fidelity, and everything, kind of like living in the castle. I was very surprised they were able to optimize it, as well as they did. But I think it'll keep the same form factor for sure. I do think it'll be much more powerful, hopefully, than the kind of older Switch, and really be able to handle, some of the kind of bigger titles from the other, consoles. I do feel like, and I'd love to get your kind of input on this, in the future, you're not going to see a whole lot of these, console exclusives anymore. I feel like studios and publishers are going to want to, port and really from launch be able to be on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and try to get those communities together. As we kind of move
particularly
forward.
If they're multiplayer games, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Particularly if they're multiplayer games, for sure. But even like Horizon Zero Dawn, what I mean, or Forbidden West, I'd love to be able to play that game. Actually, that's not ported to Switch, right?
Switch? Oh no, there's no way Switch could handle that. I don't think.
Yeah,
it's on PC though.
Right. But like I would love to be able to be playing that like on my main computer and then or my main TV and be able to pick that up, like walk into the bedroom on my Switch,
sure.
And still have that high fidelity graphics. So I feel like they're going to be pushing towards that in that direction with Switch 2, and it'll keep the same form factor smaller.
Yeah, I think exclusives are still an important part of the ecosystem, but they're becoming less. And to be honest, I've got this little theory that I've been kind of just testing out over time, but I think the reality is because Xbox is not, it's selling fine, right? The new Xboxes, it's doing well, but it's not. Sony's outselling Xbox like more than 2-1 on PS5s to the Series X and S, and I think that has created this like removal of pressure that Sony's like, okay, like we're kicking ass here. We maybe don't need to be as tight with our exclusives, so let's try putting these things out on PC. And so they tested it out with Horizon Zero Dawn was one of them.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, whatnot. And then Xbox has, because they are not selling the consoles, they're like, well, PlayStation's just got a whole bunch of, they've got 50, 60 million potential consumers that we could be selling our games. So they're starting to put stuff onto PlayStation. So ultimately that's working out, I think, positively for the consumers. We're getting to see these games. But it feels like it's a very like toe in the water moment we're going through right now, where these two companies are testing these things out. Meanwhile, Nintendo's over there eating sand or doing whatever they do. But I think that's the games industry has always functioned when there's been three main sort of competitors in the space. But now that Nintendo's kind of taken a step back in terms of like, they're not fighting for graphical fidelity, they're not fighting for power, right? They kind of have their own thing. It's really just been Xbox and PlayStation fighting against each other. And now that PlayStation has been so dominant, and I do want to be careful because PlayStation has gotten too big for their britches in the past, and we saw that with the PlayStation 3, and they became arrogant and overconfident, and it hurt them for about 7 years, like significantly. And I don't want that PlayStation coming back, but I do want to, I'm an old man. I'm trying to simplify my life. I do almost all, except for my Wordle and this like water sort game I play on my phone. I pretty much only play on PlayStation. And so the more stuff that comes to PlayStation, that works for me. Right. But I don't know how long this like sort of armistice will last. I don't like if Xbox, the next version of Xbox starts kicking ass, will they tighten up the ship? Will they lock their doors again? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, especially, the success you've seen with Helldivers 2, being, on Steam and cross-platform, Fortnite being able to be cross-platform, cloud game. I mean, 20 years in the future from now, I think cloud gaming is probably going to take off, where devices like hopefully, where devices, like the Switch, what console you have isn't going to matter, so much. So I think we're kind of seeing like the last vestiges of the console wars time period, right? Like I almost feel like that war is going to start coming to an end, and we're going to move on to a period where you can play games from any device or any platform.
Do you think we could see a PlayStation Xbox merger at some point?
That would be crazy.
It'd be wild. Man. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the two ecosystems are just kind of so different right now. I'm in this like quasi. It's not even an argument because the other guy's wrong. But someone was posting about something on Facebook about how Sony's like losing all this money, and I was like, "What's your source, dude? Like, PlayStation's outselling Xbox significantly. They're convinced that Sony needed Xbox to send all these games over to PlayStation to help them out." And I was like, no, the reason these games are showing up on PlayStation is because Xbox needs the customers, because they're not able to sell enough units on Xbox consoles by themselves. But he's convinced otherwise. I'm just like, all right, man, well, I mean, I have only been in this industry 15 years, and I only have a talk show about it every week. But what do I know? I just sit here and drink my coffee, right?
Which I think's better for the developers and better for the studios and, you know, the publishers in general.
Yeah,
I think, you know, totally. Keeping these games in these like walled gardens, you know, only really ever help the people who control the garden. And so I think, you know, that is helping to really push the industry in a way that's going to help, you know, make games better, make, you know, publishers be able to make, you know, better games, reach wider audiences, you know, moving forward. So it's weird that they think, Sony's, I mean, they usually do take a hit on putting out these consoles, right? They lose money whenever they first launch them, and they understand that.
So there hasn't been a console sold at a loss since, I think, the 360.
Really?
Yeah. So all the consoles, I could be mistaken somewhere in there, maybe the early days of the PS4, but the console manufacturers, because they used to use them as loss leaders, right? Get you in the ecosystem, sell the software, and I believe starting in the PlayStation 4, Xbox One era, they both stopped doing that because they were just losing too much money, and every dollar matters. And I think that was a big deal when PlayStation 5 and Xbox, I don't know if you remember, but this console generation, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, were released during COVID, the first year of COVID. And we didn't have a release date or a release price until like late summer. You know,
right.
they're like, oh, it's coming out this year. And people are like, can we pre-order them? Like, how much are these things going to cost? And they were both kind of waiting, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think Sony did their price announcement first, but at $500, which is $100 more than the PS4.
Right.
But they were both kind of like waiting for the other one to like make the announcement, because I think they were both worried, particularly during COVID, a pandemic, that $500 for a console was just going to be too much. Now, I think we found that $500 seems to be a reasonable price point right now.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know. Like, the PS5 Pro is rumored. I think it's going to come out this year. I think it's going to be $500. But I could be wrong. Maybe they're going to make it $550 or $600. $600 is a lot. I mean, I can afford it, but like, this is what I do for a living, right? Like, I'm not your average game consumer.
Yeah, you get to write off that $3,000 computer you have, so next you haven't plugged it in a year.
Yeah, I sure did. Don't worry about that. Yeah, so we got a few more minutes. I just want. Are you a Magic the Gathering person at all?
So I did not take money out of my 401k to get into Magic the Gathering, the card, like actual card game. I actually play it usually online on Steam, and so that is super fun. So I have gotten into Magic the Gathering, but not the actual decks.
Cool. Yeah, I used to play when I was in middle school and high school, and during COVID, I sold like pretty much all my cards and I had a couple cards that I got $500-$600 for each. So, but I did not get this. So this is from Polygon again, Petrana Radulovic. Magic the Gathering, the Black Lotus sells for a record-breaking $3 million. An alpha Black Lotus card fetched $3 million at auction last week. Grading company CGC Cards announced in an Instagram post. This particular card is not only super rare, but it has a pristine condition. The transaction went down in a private sale, and a mystery buyer, shattering previous records. So here's the, graded and in its protective sleeve. So I did not have a Black Lotus, so I did not get $3 million on my Magic cards. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting story that, first of all, as someone who played Magic, I think it's cool. But also, I love these little moments where I can just be like, hey, man, nerd culture makes a lot of money. You know, growing up because you're, I don't want to out your age. I'm 42, but I think you're a little younger than me.
35.
Okay. See, when I was growing up, like, I grew up with Nintendo, Super Nintendo. My first system ever was a ColecoVision. And, like, there were gamers, and gaming was fun, but, like, it was pretty much like a nerd thing still, you know? Like, it was it was big, but it was nothing like today. And so a lot of, like, just gaming stuff was just, like, very nerdy, and Magic the Gathering was, like, some of the nerdiest you could do, right?
Oh, yeah. And now you've got Culture Leader. I mean, Post Malone was, I think, the most expensive Magic Gathering card before this one was Post Malone, right? $2 million.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I've got some of the Bob Ross special editions still sealed in I'm waiting for those to bloom in value someday. But yeah, I just love these things where I can keep again and again. I can keep coming back to nerd culture makes money. Like, I've spent, you know, the vast majority of my life feeling like I have to defend my interests and hobbies, that I have to, like, justify going into games development.
Yep.
You know, my friend, I don't know if you know Marcus Cincy, but he makes this joke, like, if he was ever on a plane or whatever, and he's been in the industry like 20 something years, and somebody asks what he does, he's like, I just tell him I'm an accountant. Nobody asks questions. Nobody asks questions or looks down at accountants, you know?
Yeah. Do games make money when you're like, how much money do games make?
I mean, it's not super often now, but it's I'd say a couple times a year, I'm generally getting an email from a parent or having a conversation with a parent of a student about, like, the industry. You know, is this a real industry? Can you get a job here? Can you make money, kind of thing? And I assure them, like, I mean, it's a competitive industry. It's hard, but yes, you can make money. Yes, it's a real professional industry. But when I have conversations, and you know this, I mean, you just hobnobbed with the governor, but when you have conversations with a lot of people, they don't understand games. They don't understand the games industry. They don't get it. So you have to spend a lot of time trying to explain to them. And it's just, you know, and it makes it difficult to build an industry, to build small businesses here in areas that just don't get it, you know?
Right. And I do think that's changing. I mean, Gen Z, whenever I watched your last show with, Ben Cavallo, he mentioned that, Gen Z's number one form of entertainment's games. One of the biggest growing demographics, in games are folks that are 65 and older. Mm-hmm. And so, you can get a full ride to, Ohio State, Shawnee State, colleges now for their esports teams. And, gaming's a dominant, industry and a dominant force in culture. And I don't see that, going anywhere but up, as we move into the future. So I think now it's, people don't have to hide their hobbies, as much anymore, or, what industry they work in. It's not something, to be,
for young folks, it's just a part of their life. Like, they don't even think about it. It's not like, oh, I do this and I play games. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go home, play games or whatever,
Yep.
And that's
even for the folks that take it serious. I mean, like whenever we were kids, right? Nobody would bat an eye at you spending like 4 or 5 hours a day, shooting hoops, or trying to get better at baseball or basketball or football, or try and learn a skill. I think, in the future now, you're definitely going to see that, from kids that are, playing Fortnite or League of Legends, trying to get into, school and getting better at these sports.
It's very interesting because it is about sort of moderation, I guess, in a way, but doing one thing doesn't undo something else, right? You can go, I work out, I lift weights several times a week, I run several times a week, so I'm pretty active. I also read, I do public speaking, I do a variety of stuff, but also I'll sit my ass down for 3 hours and play some games, But I have noticed there's certain things, and there's actually research that shows this. So in healthcare, for example, surgeon gamers are much better. They make fewer mistakes. They're more accurate. They tend to be faster in their surgeries, which decreases complication times than surgeons who are not gamers. They just don't have the same level of hand-eye coordination and ability to compartmentalize different aspects of what's going on. I've just noticed compared to certain people, I just have way better hand-eye coordination than I think I'm an exceptionally good driver because I'm able to compartmentalize information that's coming at me. I don't get overwhelmed on the road.
Yep.
and there's just all these little things. Like there's this. So I used to. This is a weird story. When I worked in public safety, when they train the police officers to do field sobriety tests, so like the state troopers and stuff, like what they literally do is they just get a contingent of people and they just get you drunk. Like they just get you drunk, like with free booze. Yep. You're there for like 6 hours. You know, it takes like 2 or 3 hours to get drunk, and then they run the tests for an hour and then gives you a couple hours to sort of sober up.
Amateurs.
And amateurs. Yeah. But like I always passed all of the sobriety stuff because a lot of them are just based on hand-eye coordination and balance, yep, as well as being able to compartmentalize like different pieces of information and hold them in your head. And so I always like tended to pass the field sobriety tests in those sessions. And I know this sounds silly, but I think a lot of just these little, I'm trying to get to like what you were mentioning, but like the idea of transferable skills, right? And I think Absolutely. That's the important thing is figuring out what are the transferable skills. So you have very specific skills in gaming. So if you're a good, esports player, you're going to be a good esports player or whatever. But then what are those other transferable skills? And then you bring multiplayer in there. I fully, like, again, it sounds strange for me to say this, but I am kind of like a leader,
Oh yeah,
I've got a group. I've got a big community. I do a lot of public speaking. I owe a lot to that, to my early 20s playing World of Warcraft and raid leading.
I was just about to bring that up. If you're able to keep a WoW guild together for a few years, you should run for public office.
Yeah, and like it's you're talking about like you're trying to get. And I was doing raiding back when it was like 40 people groups, right? And then it dropped down to like, what was it, 20 and 10. Much more manageable, but
it was back with classic WoW. But and I would have thought that well, we're all adults now, right? Like this is all going to go much easier. Everyone's like 35, we're all not like 16 anymore.
Yeah,
no, same issues.
Yeah, you're trying to organize 40 people to do something that's very complicated that requires everybody sort of moving in an organized way. They're all in different time zones. Yep. A lot of them are speaking. English is not their first language. And so you're just navigating all of these different components. And we weren't like a top tier raid guild, but we did pretty good. And I learned a lot in that process by being a raid leader. And I use a lot of those skills every day. It's weird.
Absolutely.
It's weird. Well, we've come to our time together. Like we still have more articles and stuff, but man, it flew by. Any last things you want to talk about? Where can people find you if they want to follow you or learn more about what you're doing?
So I'm on Twitter, gdavis23. On Twitter, you can definitely follow us there. The Cricker Innovation Hub. Google that. Here, Shawnee State. We're going to be announcing this awesome new program we've got coming to Ohio and the world here soon. So definitely, follow us on there and be in the first to know.
Awesome. Well, that has been episode 22 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at the GDEX. You can come to thegdex.com for information about the GDEX Expo. We are in the middle of changing our event platform right now to one I think will be a lot better, but I got to do a lot of data entry, so I'm working on it. But then also, don't forget the Sandbox.Space website where you can sign up for our weekly email where we send out the articles we talk about today, as well as a link to the YouTube that we discuss. So yeah, come be a part of the community. We are working on getting a Discord up and running. That will probably be summer sometime. But also, we will be posting information about the Shawnee State Accelerator as more comes out. So, pay attention to that if you're interested, either as a game developer that might want to be a part of it or just someone who wants to spread the word. And of course, please come to GDEX and support the game devs that come and are showcasing their work. But this has been episode 22. Thank you, Garrett. We appreciate you being here. I am your host, Chris, joined as always by Pumpkin and Baby, who I think are over there napping together. And as always, we will see you on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. every week. So again, Garrett, it's been wonderful. I had a blast. Time just flew by.
Thanks, Chris.
Sweet. And we'll see everybody next week.